Today's lecturers for the lecture series are two architects from Taiwan, Taipei. And they're going to talk about one building, one pavilion, which is built last year. These architects are Lydia and Wei Chieh. So I'll briefly introduce. Lydia, they both are architects from Taiwan, and Lydia is an artist, curator, and gardener as well. Both graduated from the Royal College of Art in London in 2019, and currently based in Taipei. She works across architecture, performance, and experience curation. Her works are often informed by politics between and within body and space. She grows her own organic vegetables with her dad on Yangmingshan Mountain in Taipei. And Wei Chieh also graduated from Royal College of Art in London in 2019, and since then has been residing in Taiwan. And from 2020 to 2022, he collaborated remotely with Swiss architect Pascal Flemmer. And in his recent works, Wei Chieh has been focusing on exploring the former abstraction of architecture spaces with the aim of bringing a fundamental sense of spatial intimacy to architecture. And now briefly introducing Korean. 두 분이고요. 그 리디아랑 웨이 치eh 이렇게 두 명의 타이완 건축가고 젊은 건축가입니다. 작년에 그 타이페이 시립미술관이라는 그 미술관에서 엑스사이트라고 연례 파빌리온 그 공모전이 있어요. 거기 당선작으로 작년에 완공이 됐었고 지금은 해체가 됐지만 굉장히 훌륭한 파빌리온이었고 유럽 건축계에서도 많은 건축가들이 관심을 가졌고 그래서 훌륭한 건축물이어서 한번 초대를 해서 말씀을 듣고 싶다 이렇게 생각을 했었는데 이렇게 응해 주셔서 좀 감사하게 생각합니다. 좋은 건물이니만큼 많은 영감이 되리라 믿습니다. So thank you for reading. Please take it away.
Okay. 안녕하세요. Thank you, Hee Joon, for the intro, and Hanyang University for the precious invitation. This is actually only our second time presenting the outside of Taiwan, also in English. Can you hear me well? Is it fine? Okay. And the first time was only yesterday, so it's pretty much the first time, and so it's really an honor to be here, being a part of this series. We've also listened to both lectures from Andreas and Philip before us, which are wonderful in ways. We're able to see them working in different cultures, and through collaboration with the local teams, they're able to produce projects in various ideas and skills. In today's talk, what we will do is a little bit different since we're in fact not a setup studio. So we will only present one project, but we'll try to go through it from start to finish and unravel as many layers as we can in the limited time that we have today. So I will share my screen. There will be two presenters today. There will be me. My name is Wei Chieh Kung, and sitting right next to me is Lydia Ya-Chu Chang right here, who is also another project leaders in the project. And both of us have our backgrounds in architecture, and kind of just to explain the reason why we're invited today, because Hee Joon, Lydia, and I were all students studying architecture at the Royal College of Art in London just a few years back, and that's where I got to know Lydia. But in fact, Hee Joon and I actually go even more way back. This is back in 2016. Together, we were interning at Junya Ishigami just for a short time. So in fact, we've known each other for almost 7 years now. And so in this photo, you can see Hee Joon right here making a really delicate model. And this is us in 2017 in the same class. We're presenting together a project. And here is a photo of Lydia and some of our friends, we're watching some water reflection on the ceiling. Yes, so. And since we finished school in 2019, Lydia and I moved back to Taiwan. We're both from Taiwan, although we're from different city. She's from Taipei, and I'm from kind of the south, another city called Chiayi. And this is kind of basically where we're working now, and also where we work during the project. But during the project, from time to time, I will also go to Taipei to discuss things with other teammates. Kind of in terms of the project, it's essentially split into two parts. There is the architecture part, the physical part, that is the blue house. And then on the right, you can also see this public program, which is kind of there are 5 different events that we curated for the space during the exhibition, which we call the Blue House Study. And in today's presentation, I'll be presenting the architecture part, and Lydia will present the public program. Essentially, kind of what we were more responsible for during the project. But in fact, we would always discuss together. So the two projects they happen and were developed simultaneously. And diving right into the project, the Blue House is this temporary pavilion project hosted by the Taipei Fine Art Museum in Taipei, Taiwan. It's a kind of pavilion competition very similar to other ones around the world, such as the Serpentine Pavilion or MoMA PS1. And until this year, it's the competition has been hosted for 10 years now. And our project was last year's project, so it was the 9th. And usually it would last for about 2.5 months in the summer on the outdoor plaza of the museum. And as you can see in this map, this kind of white grid-like structure in the center, that's the museum. And then you have on the top, that's the outdoor plaza area where the site is located at. And this context of the site is in this area made out of a lot of public programs. So there is parks and then school and auditoriums. But it's also in this kind of junction of the city where kind of the river cuts through, and there are a lot of busy roads passing by. So in a way, it's very open, but it's also quite isolated and noisy. And during our research, we kind of came across these two photos. On the left is this photo taken in 1983 of the museum. And as you can see, there's a lot of people out on the plaza, and there are some sculptures in the middle of it. And on the right, you have this picture that we took before the construction. And in contrast, it's very empty. And also from what we observe, people mostly come here just for the museum. So they would always try to get into the building as fast as they can. And because there is really nothing out here to do, and it becomes really hot in the summer. So for this reason, the idea of this project kind of became in a way to bring back these people onto the plaza, but also not for any particular activities. We thought by bringing in this sort of intimacy in this public space, people would naturally come here and use the space in their own way. And so through this kind of understanding of this site condition, it brings me to this painting that I've always enjoyed in the past. It's by this Dutch painter, Pieter Bruegel the Elder. And this painting is called The Children's Game. And it's kind of this painting set in a European town in the Middle Ages. And as you can see, the entire town is filled with people. And if you look closely at the painting, like the people are all children. Like on one day, they just decided to kind of take over the entire town and start playing games. And So at the bottom of the painting, you can see some people are playing these hoops, or a person is doing a handstand here, and piggybacking here, like just doing a lot of different things. What interests me the most in this painting is how everyone is in some ways is doing the same thing, but also not really. In a way, this is kind of what I've always tried to bring into architecture, a space that has the ability to be universal and diverse at the same time. Two ideas that are seemingly contradicting, but also not mutually exclusive. And then when these two ideas are overlapped, a sort of empathetic space is formed, where it can somehow kind of accommodate people with different personalities, moods, behaviors, and action. And the space is always continuous, so it's uninterrupted. It's got this join atmosphere, and for me, this is what I try to do in the project: a place that embodies spatial universality and diversity. So on one hand, what we try to achieve is to contain this bigger universal image of a house, recalling the warmth and intimacy within the home. And on the other hand, it's this kind of series of scattered spaces made out of simple geometries, and they're abstract and open-ended for imagination and dialogue. And through this gesture of layering and connecting, the project becomes a house that is probably not a house, but could also be a house and that contains elements coming in and out of the building. So together they're made entirely out of timber and dye in this single color of blue. Just coming back to the side, the building is located on this outdoor plaza and sitting across the stairs, cutting the plaza into smaller pieces around. Roughly 18 meters long and 11 meters wide. In section, it's about 4.4 meters at the lower end and 3.1 meters on the upper end. And to connect this height difference, it's this floor becoming a wavy floor that extends upwards to flush with this existing ground on the plaza on the top. And from the plan, you can also see that it's actually rotated slightly 5 degrees in relation to the stairs. Also, that is the axis of the museum. As I just mentioned, it's this kind of grid-like structure. And the series of objects are scattered, and also the openings at various positions of the building. And in section, you can see the two sides, the two long sides are open to the outside. And it gets at most around 1.3 meters from the existing ground to this eaves. And it just gets smaller and smaller, right? So as you go out, it goes from 1.3 to 0. And rather than sort of creating an open building that everybody sees everything at once, in order to create the intimacy, we wanted the experience to be unfolded step by step as you approach a building. And on the inside, you can only see out below the eaves and also through the skylights, which are placed intentionally kind of at the position where one would not be able to see the surrounding buildings, which for us is like the most kind of familiar at the site. So in a way to kind of bring people away from this context, but also not completely cut off. In terms of structure, it's made out of 4 elements. There's the gable roof, and the gable roof, and then the walls on 2 sides, and then the floor, and then these series of objects, which we call the irregular objects. The idea is that, the idea is that not only they're spatial, but they're also structural. Although at the end, not all of them were able to become structurally efficient. Most of them kind of maintain a structural significance for the project. In this drawing, it's this kind of flattened detail section of where we place all the irregular objects at the same point, and seeing how they're joined together with the rest of the structure. On the left is this kind of scale thing that inside this box is 200 kilograms of metal plates stacked together. And so it pushes down the beam on this end and support the roof on the other side to hold it in place. And then you have this circular pillar, which holds a beam on the top. And on one end, the beam is connected to the ridge beam of the roof. And so this kind of the weight of this beam, the dead weight of this beam becomes the counterweight. And so it pushes down on this side and also lift the roof up on this end. And on the other side, you have like a diagonal pillar rather than kind of dividing the space. It creates a cave-like condition on the inside. And on the right, you have this kind of rectangular object stretches to the outside of the building and acting more than just a support, but also a bench. And so just to kind of understand the building a bit more, I'll go through a series of photos and explain what you might see and experience. This is, if you come from the road, this is the kind of first thing that will come into our eyes. The kind of long facade and also the blue kind of standing out from the surrounding environment. And the kind of irregular objects are scattered around on this organized structure. And some of them are kind of penetrating through the roof. Some are stuck in between or removed from the solid. The building is like it's still being built on the go. It's built on the go, so it's constantly still under construction. And on the side, there are these irregular objects sticking out. This is the scale that I mentioned before, which is 200 kilograms inside this box, pushing up the roof. And you have the undulating floor extending to the top of the plaza. For us, this is kind of a very important point. On one hand, it's this kind of extremely site-specific project. On the other hand, it's almost this an object kind of superimposed on the site and could be kind of taken away and put it anywhere else. And the front and the back, the building also kind of expresses different appearances, a sort of duality. On the lower side, the building reveals this kind of house shape, looking almost like a barn. And up on the stairs, the house is shrunken down to a triangle, looking more like a tent. And to enter the building, you kind of go through this opening behind the circle-shaped screen. And also, this screen is in fact not a circle. It's from this drawing, you can see it's this kind of eclipse squeezed down by the weight of the roof and becoming this physical manifestation of the force that's applied here. And the screen is rotated about 30 degrees. So this almost kind of hidden entrance. So only through turning our body slightly, we will be able to enter. And as we step inside, the first thing that one would notice is on our feet, the kind of uneven floor. Our toes are always leaning downwards, but our legs will quickly adapt. So to kind of bend down and giving us more stability, and at the same time also slowing down our pace. And from the floor, you can also see these irregular objects sticking out from underneath, meeting with other components without any apparent joints. So they're coming together almost as a single entity, inseparable from the rest. And as we were walking inside, we would realize the undulation of the floor is symmetrical, but also not random. At points, the undulation is steeper, and other points it's shallower, and so it's kind of allowing a person or a group of people to, when they come in, they'll be able to find a spot just for them. Some would sit down in this kind of open area, and other would maybe lie down near the corner or around the objects. It's this kind of continuous space that is dissolved into areas with the undulation. And on the other hand, you also have these lights coming in, constantly reshaping the spatial environment within. And sometimes you get this spotlight. Other times in the summer, it rains quite a lot, so it becomes a rainforest on the inside. And the environment like really comes directly into it and transforming the atmosphere and the way we use the space within. And also not only through the skylight, they come in through the gaps and underneath the eaves, and they kind of the light crawls in and reveal what is beyond the space there. It's this project that is about a place of repose in the public space. So purposely kind of blocking the context, but it's also about revealing the banal, what we kind of neglect in our daily lives. And so what we thought for the next summer, when we exit out the building again, and perhaps we can see the world beyond differently. And through this stratification of these spatial geometries, so what we try to create is this somehow abstract but also not unfamiliar environment. And finally, with this image, we thought very closely describe the experience of the building, something that is intimate, but hopefully also a bit exciting. And following this, for this part, I'll try to go through really quickly the entire process of the floor from design to finish. We thought perhaps this will give people a sense of what happens for the rest of the building. But in this case, I'll only explain just the floor. This is one of the proposal renders that we submitted to the museum in the first stage. We started the project in 2021, September 1st, and we only have just 1 month to submit this proposal. And here are some different floor assembly options that we came up with in the first stage. On the left, you can see this kind of simple CNC waffle structure. This is the kind of proposal that we submitted at first. And then we thought it would be interesting if we kind of give it a bigger span and just placing these 2x4 timber on the top. And the CNC becomes like a formwork. So using the natural flexibility of the 2x4 timber, we can create the undulation that we wanted. And there is some other option, laminated beams. And eventually we try to continue with this option where it's completely 2x4 timber without CNC at all, just by kind of placing, screwing them together in the right position, we can create the undulation that we wanted. We thought would be the kind of most respecting for the materials as well. So we continue with this. And then we made this 1:25 model with the floor being this 2x4 woven structure, as I just mentioned before. And the first thing we did was to cut the floor into pieces. And due to the reality that we need to put it onto a truck and ship it to the site, so they're divided by the truck sizes. The floor module become this 4x2 meter. And then after we won the first the competition, this is the first meeting we had with our engineer and contractor, and the engineer actually decided very quickly on the spot that we cannot use the woven structure. It needs to be this very hardcore kind of stable structure at the bottom to tie everything together. So we went back to the waffle structure that I just mentioned, kind of to tie everything together. So the roof and also these irregular objects, and making it this kind of freestanding object on the site. And following this, to kind of also thinking about how to save costs, we also develop other option where the floor module is kind of repeating module, so they're just flipping upside down and connecting to one another. But eventually we thought this is really not what we wanted as an idea, because what we thought, the floor should be a thing that is unique everywhere you walk on top. So we abandoned this. And this is an image where we asked the engineer about the crossband of the waffle structure. Since this is freestanding floor on the ground, it needs to have some resting point when it reaches the ground. So for every 4 to 5 meters, you have a resting point, and on the shore direction, you have a resting point every 3 to 4 meters. And to also save the time, we also had to like draw our execution drawings directly for the factory to produce the pieces. For the floor beams, we wanted them to kind of join without an extra piece of connection. So we had these cross-helving joints throughout, and so they're cut directly as we're cutting them, CNC them into the shape that we wanted. Later, we made this one-to-one mock-up model in order to test if we need a secondary layer of structure on the top. At this point, we have these beams going, which has the cut section of 45 by 190 millimeter, and they're spaced every meter apart. And on the other direction, we have some smaller one, 45 by 80. So this spacing is just 500 millimeter apart. And eventually what we did was to have these flooring 12 millimeter plywood that are just kind of resting on top and screw into the beams underneath, and to kind of minimize the complexity of the floor assembly as well. And this is an image of where we were discussing how to draw the execution drawing for the floor. In total, there is 215 beams, and they're all unique. So there are 27 sets of floor, and they're numbered 1 to 9, and in 3 different columns. And luckily, the factory was able to produce them within a week, plus some overtime. And after this, they did a test assembly in the factory with the 27 sets. And then this is a kind of image where we were thinking about the pattern of the floor as well. And what's kind of the challenge here is that because it's not a flat surface, so for every pieces, every flooring panel, it's actually a different length. So what we decided to do is actually to have 4 different sizes of flooring panels, and there will be an extra length in each one. So there is 500 and a meter, and 1.5, and then 2 meters, and we add like 100 millimeter to each length, and when they're brought to the site, they are cut into the length. To the center of the beam underneath, and so each one has a different length in theory. Yeah, so this is what we did for the flooring pattern. Oh. And before sending out the materials, the contractor also helped us to kind of simulate how the materials will be loaded onto the truck to avoid any rearrangement on the site. So essentially what you see here, the top piece will be at the bottom of the site, and that will be the last piece that is assembled to the building. And this is the second day of the construction, where the workers assemble all the floor pieces, because the museum didn't allow any heavy equipment on the pavement. So we had to use a crane that's about 60 meters away on the road. And in order to have this 60 meters radius, working radius, for some of the day, we had to use a crane that is about 200 tons. And each one of these module is about 120 to 160 kilogram. And finally, this is an image taken near at the end of the construction when the workers were screwing down the flooring, just before they covered the structure completely. So, and for us, this is kind of also the moment where we felt a sense of relief that the physical part of the project is finally coming to an end. But in fact, it was also just a starting point for the other part of the project, which is the public program. And for that, I'll hand it over to Lydia to go through the rest of the project. Thank you.
Hello everyone. 안녕하세요. Thank you, Wei Chieh, and hi everyone, Lydia. And I'm really happy to virtually be here with you. And thanks, Hee Joon, for the precious opportunity to present to the Hanyang University. And so now I'm going to introduce Blue House studies to you. So like what Wei Chieh mentioned in the very beginning, the Blue House study is a public program curated site-specifically for Blue House. And it's a bit like in London, the Serpentine Park Night, like aiming to engage wider public through a series of events and experiment a new way of social and spatial possibilities. And for the X-Site program, the museum also has their own curatorial team. But when we submitted the proposal in the very first beginning, we already have a clear idea of how Blue House and Blue House study together as one project. And we also believe that events should not be inserted, but rather be considered as part of the overall architecture. So we don't want Blue House is just like a stage for event, but a place which makes dialogue happen. And luckily, the museum liked our proposal, so they decided to give us this amazing opportunity to curate the public program by ourselves. And so the building construction and the experience making were happened at the same time. And the event took place approximately like one every 10 days during 2.5 months. And we collaborate with people from different backgrounds like sound artists and performer, visually impaired, body therapists, and olfactologists, and as well as the audience on site. So maybe you can see it as a performance, but I find it more interesting to think of it as a kind of architecture building that like building an intangible space, you know, like a space that is constructed by the ink material. And as a group of architects, we also have a strong self-awareness of political power a space can create. So when we want to try like different way to blur the spatial boundaries in order to let everyone be as free as they can. So through the tool we all have, which is our body, to explore the limitation and possibilities. And this intangible space encompasses the unpredictable and ever-changing phenomenon, which I call an internal form of architecture. It can only happen in the present moment, cannot be rehearsed, and cannot never happen again. It's like what Heraclitus says, no man ever stepped in the same river twice, for it's not the same river and he is not the same man. And I also believe that this is the simplest truth of life. So I think Blue House study is just trying to manifest this philosophy. And I really like this quote from Italo Calvino, which he was basically trying to say is, over the years, Homo sapien, the wise man, have become educated to become the Homo legend, the reading man, but forget how Homo sapien perceive nature with animal instinct that could tell the time from the stars and predict weather from smells. And as to hearing, smell, taste, and touch, Their superiority over us is undeniable. So our project is always about remembering the forgotten primitive ability of human. And I asked myself, what do you see in this painting? They gave me so many different answers. But actually this drawing was done with my eyes closed. I was just tracing my body's movement to music. There are always so many things to tell behind the visualization. And of course, visually, you can see so many things freely. However, sometimes this too easy brings limitation. So we start thinking, if we can't see the space, what else is there? And how can we reveal that quality? And due to the time, I will introduce 3 of the 5 events to you. And the first event is called Blue Eyes Inner Landscape. So here is the 30-second trailer for Blue House Instagram. And so we are curious about that blue and house, what blue and house mean to someone who doesn't have vision. In fact, in the beginning, when we decided to call the name Blue House, was purely a very visual concept. When all the audience experience space without vision, we will rebuild the blue house in our imagination. And it's an imaginary space, recreating an inner landscape together. So in our daily lives, how much time do we consciously close our eyes from the moment we wake up until we go to sleep? Many things may seem like we have experienced them by just seeing them, but in the reality, we are all stuck in the same place. Especially now, the whole world is obsessed with creating amazing visual with ease, and we are overwhelmed by the ubiquity of sight. A narratologist introduced to me Shen Hong, a psychologist who was born completely blind and has never seen the world we have seen. He told me seeing doesn't mean knowing. That left a deep impression on me. Shen Hong also works for an NGO called Dialogue in the Dark, which aims to bridge the gap between the visually impaired and the visual world. And we work with them in this event, guiding the audience to reevaluate and explore the perception and senses in the Blue House. And this is the process of working on the blue eyes. Before the construction was completed, we had to constantly communicate through models, words, and verbal description on translating physical space and experience to align our ideas, our imaginations, and to identify the orientation and to recognize different parts of the building during the whole journey. The participants have never been into the Blue House. We met in the lobby of the museum, covered their eyes with blindfold. The audience began to work very slowly and gradually find their own pace. And working through the outdoor plaza, then get into the Blue House, from a flat marble floor to a wooden undulating floor. The gentle breeze has stopped and smell of the wood fills in the air. And it's amazing to see how audience start exploring the space just out of our expectation. And here are some more examples. And it was during COVID, and this girl pulling down her mask, trying to smell the wood. And you can see in this, the social distance between the strangers, a guy carrying a baby, and the person next to him is actually not his mom. So the last part, just stay in the silence, be with yourself. The cicada, the car, the people walking, bird, dog, frogs, airplanes, so vividly that echo will last very long. And we asked the audience to draw the image appear in their mind when they were wandering in the Blue House. What do they see? The sketch is not about the accuracy, but their own memory and imaginations. So the most important thing is nothing is more real than your own feeling. The second event is called Blue Mind Collective Sleeping. We invite people to spend the night in the Blue House, a rare opportunity to sleep in a public space, which is not even enclosed. And what we want, we want everyone to like completely relax, fall asleep, and start dreaming, because we believe that dreams are the subconscious version of oneself, and they can help one to understand themselves better. I think many of you are familiar with this painting, a lion musing over a sleeping woman on a moonlight night. And what's beautiful about this is when the woman is sleeping, there is a natural state of humanity and innate good of people. And the world is not to be feared, but rather can offer us a sense of peace and wonder between our dream and the reality. As the event begins, we have a small ritual where we serve blue tea for everyone to relax. We had an interesting discussion about dreaming someone else's dream at night is like experience their past. Then we exchange a memorable dream to each other. Samantha, a therapist who led everyone in the session of contact improvisation to feel the space before going to sleep, and guiding everyone to use their body to measure the space. And people simple by just being there in the present to participate. When everyone finds their own spot, the entire piece of floor has been divided organically. And now everyone is just like the painting, the gypsy sleeping beside the lion under the moonlight, sleeping and dreaming together. And the last event I want to introduce you today is Blue Body, Spirit Song Over the Water. And in every event, we try to let audience become the performer. And this one is the same too. We collaborate with the dancer Chen Chen. She told 3 different Chinese myths, 混沌, 女拔, 地江, through 3 characters, we guide people to experience changes in their inner state. We also want to challenge the things that our body are not allowed to do on a regular basis in the public space. Especially after experiencing COVID, our bodies are more restricted and loneliness has increased a lot in the city. Like Lao Tzu say in the Dao De Jing, the reason why ceramic urn is useful lies in its nothingness. The reason why a house is useful lies in its emptiness. The tangible function as a carrier, yet the intangible is real existence, like the body and soul of a human being. So you can see in this painting by Taiwanese artist Li Yihong, the solidity of the mountain provides a strong contrast to the mist, which is mutually complementary and indispensable interaction between emptiness and substance. Forget about being reasonable, was what Chen Chen told the audience before they came into the Blue House. And that just made me feel so relieved. At the beginning, Chen Chen danced underneath the cloth at the center. She was telling the story of Hun Tun, a Chinese mythology character who is formless and also represents a concept of primordial and chaotic states that contains potential for both creation and destruction. Then she slowly covered the audience, sitting aside with the clothes, and then something magical happened. The big piece of cloth starting to dance, and then it got passes around from person to person in the audience. The energy dialogue happened. The performer and audience start making the piece together. Underneath the cloth, everyone became a Hun Tun, and returned to a primitive, refreshed, and creative state of mind. And they started to become more open. The next character, Nu Ba, is a goddess from associated with drought and dry spells, who could control the weather by blocking the flow of river and lakes. Nu Ba came to the earth, helped her father with the war with Chi You, and couldn't return to the heaven after using up her divine power. Wherever she lived, there was no rain, causing droughts. Like Nu Ba, we often encounter moments in life where we have things we want to say but can't express. We ask the audience to find a partner in the crowd and push each other to the edge with all their energy while shouting out the emotions. Just let everyone to let go in this moment in front of the museum. Di Zhang is an ancient Chinese mountain god with a color like red fire, 6 feet and 4 wings, without a face, and knowledgeable in music and dance. Again, the mask was passed around from person to person in the audience. And with the mask wearing, everyone started dancing with the performer. There's a quote saying, "Music and dance come before writing, and our body remember more than words do." And what it means is music and dance are ancient form of human expression that predate written language and have a profound impact on our body and minds. And our body always remember. And that's it. This is about Blue House studies. And at the end, I will show a 6-minute video about the whole projects together. The video has sound, and please adjust the volume by yourself.
今年已经第9届，通常一个比赛啊。
他就会给你 make to 的档案。
不是要办等队啦。
我要找大方来了，我找他来。在左侧。
地上的这些是应该有办法支撑。
确认一下。
第二个拍手。
Thank you. Yeah, finished. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. 감사합니다.
Cool. Thank you for the lecture. Yeah, there was difficulty like turning on the mic. So
It's okay.
Yeah, no
problem.
problem.
thank you for the wonderful lecture. And if there's any question, please put your hands up, and I can translate for you. So you can stay in Korean. I can translate. But before start, I have many questions to begin with. So I'm sorry. So the inevitable question that you cannot ditch is, why did you use the color blue?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I think like blue has a deep historical stories, like famously Yves Klein, and there's also blue used by this film director Derek German in 1993 film, I believe.
Yes.
Yes, and there's also this Belgian pavilion at the Venice Biennale, I recall, in 2018. which is from the color of EU flag, I believe. So yeah, so it has like a vivid historical background, and so why blue?
Yeah.
You can answer.
Yeah, maybe I'll try to answer this question. I mean, of course, we get this answer pretty much every time we need to speak about the project. So it's also a question that we discuss a lot. And actually, even before answering this question, I will try to answer another question before this, is why do we kind of apply this color to the entire building? And that is really kind of to respond to this idea behind the project. As I mentioned, it's we wanted the space to be this kind of universal and also diverse space. And through this gesture of layering spatial geometries, we thought it would only be necessary to kind of use one color to consolidate all of the geometries. And also, in fact, it's because the entire thing is made out of timber, so there is a lot of different timber materials that were used in the building. So they all have different texture and colors. And so in order to achieve this balance between the universality and diversity, we put this color onto it, and we thought that would be the simplest way to do it. And it's also not a paint, so it's not covering everything. It's a dye, so you'll be able to still see the material of the timber. And from far away, what you would see is this kind of blue abstract structure on the site. And from close up, it's the material is revealed. You'll be able to see it in your own eyes and through touching. So yeah, that is the reason why we use a color on it. And to answer your question, coming back to your question,
After your long answer.
after this long answer, to come back to this question is, it's why do we choose blue? Is of course it's a thing that we debated a lot in the beginning, but not in a serious way, because as I mentioned, it's this color is not about this color. It's about kind of consolidating everything together. So it didn't really matter at first what color it was. So we were just kind of thinking about it, and one of the first color that came to our mind is blue. And so it's purely kind of this subjective preference. But it's also, after we decided on the color first, and then we did some research on it, and we realized blue is also a very interesting color in the way that it's this kind of rarest color pigment in the natural world. But there's also a lot of blue that we see in our everyday life. So there's the sky, there is the ocean, and it's this so it's this color that is at the same time very natural, but also a bit unnatural in a way. And we thought this kind of really suit the project itself. And
Still.
And also in terms of kind of embodiment, it kind of relates to these ideas of the ocean and the sky being like this kind of infinite thing. So when people enter this building, we wanted them to feel like it is not so much about this building itself, but it's about kind of entering and going somewhere else with this building. So the idea is that with the blue, they'll be able to kind of go into a place that in their own imagination. And also for the last answer, it's that it also embodies a lot of different emotions. For us, it's very important for the project that it kind of everybody come to the building can find their perfect spot right away. And so this blue has, of course, the idea of sadness, depression, but it's also a color that is very calming. It soothes our hearts. So we thought this is like, even though we chose it in the beginning, just almost like random out of pure preference, but it kind of stuck with us, and we just continue with it. It's a long answer, but I hope it answered the question.
Okay, thank you for the answer. And,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, because I heard this like, you know, like previously, and
Yes.
yeah, it kind of, you know, summarizes really well. And
Yeah.
And the other question is like, so this building looks like a building to me rather than a pavilion, which means that like its appearance makes me believe that this blue house has a concrete base. And in fact, it is a big object put on top of the stairs. So does this affect the way you approach the project? Or like in the opposite way, does the temporality of this building, this pavilion, affects the way you approach?
Yeah, I mean that is I'll also try to answer this question. That is very relevant in our design in the very beginning. In terms of just kind of the construction and structure methodology in the beginning when we were designing the project. To be honest, we're very we have zero experience before this in the physical world. So also in terms of timber, we've never built anything with timber before. So we didn't know anything about timber, and as you can see in the first towards the end of my presentation, there was an image of this render of Blue House. And that was the first kind of image that we produced, but we weren't really thinking about how to kind of put the building on the site. It was because it was all done in the kind of virtual world, right? So what we were thinking was a lot of structure were kind of, they would have this concrete foundation somehow on the site. And after we won the competition, we started to, I mean, even during the project, we started talking to engineer, but we had a very short time, so we didn't really have a solution to solve these things. But after we won the competition, we started talking to the engineer, and we realized there's a lot of things that cannot be structural. That's why I mentioned not a lot of things, but some of the components needed to be kind of altered. So it can still maintain that structural significance for the building. And that was the kind of changes that we had to make, even though the design is relatively the same, but there was just some kind of thinking and design that had to be kind of revised during the process. But I think somehow it's also quite nice that we realized we didn't have to have that foundation on the site. It becomes this kind of project that is, it looks like it's permanent, but it's still very temporary, that you kind of just we built the whole thing in 15 days. We took the materials and then we built everything there on the site. And so it's got this kind of duality that we really enjoy. As a concept, it's a house, but it's also very temporal.
Yeah, I think it really makes this project way more intriguing. I think the fact that it's not actually, it does not have the concrete base, or it does not really it's not really a building, but the fact that it's a pavilion really is an interesting factor of this project. And sorry for all these questions, but
They're great questions.
I think also this project has a strong common ground with these relatively young architects from Swiss, like Raphael Zuber. It also is reminiscent of Pascal Flammer, where you collaborated with, or David Klemmer, in terms of how you deal with the structure and form.
Yeah.
And it also reminds me of these other architects like Shisaku Arakawa, or Madeline Jeans, or even film director Andrei Tarkovsky, for some of his production design. So how do you relate to this this other colleague architects or other artists or film directors?
I mean, yeah, again, it's my answer. I'm sorry. But yes, as you mentioned, I was at that time I was working for Pascal Flammer, and it's really down to kind of the kind of ideas and references that I was exposed to and really had my interest in it. And so during, like, to kind of enter this project, we didn't really have the intention of winning and building the project. It was more as an opportunity for me to experiment on the things that I was exposed to and that I was learning. So I wanted to bring these ideas into kind of this kind of a chance to just experimenting, and eventually, yeah, we got the chance to actually bring it into reality and to test out the ideas that I was learning. So I think it was a wonderful opportunity.
I think that's really a humble way to put it. That's really a humble answer. And maybe my next like last question. This factory that you collaborated with, where all these wood were manufactured, it's in the middle of the forest. You showed me the photo, and could you tell us more about this collaboration between the factory?
Yeah. So actually, talking about the material, timber is not a common material in Taiwan because we in terms of forestry, we're not allowed to cut trees in Taiwan. It's all banned. Until recently, we started, the government started allowing a bit more, but it's still a very uncommon material for buildings. But even before we started this project, there was the intention of doing the whole thing in wood, as we thought it's kind of the most respecting material for our environment, as it is now, and so we try to use timber, but there's not many companies in Taiwan that produce and construct with timber, and so, but luckily we were researching online and we found this company, and it's like one of the best in Taiwan, honestly. And what's funny is that in the beginning we sent him this PDF of the proposal that we submitted to the museum, and he rejected us straight away because he thought it's like this kind of student projects that just came out of university and decided to enter this competition, and also the budget is not much. It's this kind of government project, right, for the museum. So he knew it would be a lot of work, and it would not be kind of feasible for the company. But then what we did was after we got rejected, we decided to go straight to the company
to meet him in person
and propose this pitch to him, and I guess he was touched in some way. You saw this campfire in the video that is where the boss factory is, and he's a guy who's really enjoys this kind of the environment, what's in the nature, and we had a good conversation, and he didn't accept the offer, but he said if we win the competition, then we would talk again, and we won the competition, and so he had no way to enter it, so that was a collaboration, and
actually they were super busy.
Yeah, they were super busy, so we were really working kind of very closely together, so we actually had to work in that city. It's a different city
in the middle of Taiwan.
Yeah, and for like around 3 weeks, and so I was just like renting a place near the factory, and we actually also camped on the factory to kind of to work with the teams there.
Yeah, that's a wonderful story. Those stories I can hear from all this famous architects.
Yeah.
Is there any question? 질문 있어요? Or anyone from the audience in Zoom?
When you design pavilion, I wonder whether you focus.
I can read maybe, because this will be uploaded on YouTube, so they need the audio. So when you design a pavilion, I want to know whether you focus on its external design or on elements like the atmosphere that people can feel inside it. This came from one of the students.
Okay. Sorry, I guess it's my turn again. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, this is exactly as the student mentioned. It's the two at the same time. You cannot separate one from the other, and it's whatever you design. It's always kind of it's always kind of telling people how to feel. So, but what we try to do is not to kind of dominate this feeling, but allowing people to kind of have their own interpretation of the space, and that's what we try to achieve at the end.
질문 있으세요?
I have a question.
Yeah.
You first.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for lecture. I was very impressed by your project. While watching your presentation, I just feel you guys try to make some contrast between outside or inside, and human people want to focus on their own human character-like senses or kind of something. If that I just wonder, what is your intention in this project?
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, a big part of the project is about this kind of inside and outside, and about this intimacy. And what we thought was kind of important for this project is the idea of creating this kind of intimate space. And because the site in the beginning is this kind of very open context, and nobody really goes to that place. And in a way, we thought if we kind of create this place for people to be somehow also sheltered and not really exposed in this kind of open plaza, they will be able to be more free and to kind of open their senses and to express themselves in their own ways. And I think that was that was the idea of this project.
And I think for the public program that to respond to the point that you just raised, that I feel like sometimes architect or artists, we always want to try to express ourselves like through our work and to like show our concept or theory like on the building. But actually, I always feel that the ultimate goal for the creator, actually, we all want to bring a comfortable or like a very suitable space for every single person. And so what we want to achieve in the Blue House study is to give back this power to all the participants. So we encourage them to express themselves, and like they don't need to understand anything like that we were talking about. They just be there and feel it themselves. Yeah, and I think in a way that's more like maybe democratic way of like what we're trying to achieve. Yeah.
The place become some kind of sanctuary from other people's watching. I was very expressive. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And I have one question. And before that, I thank you for your lecture. Your project was really, really impressive, and I'm touched. Truly.
Thank you so much.
And also, I want to thank to Hee Joon Lee, because I'm not the student of University of Hanyang University, but he invited everyone. So thank you. And my question is, well, when I saw your PT, Junya Ishigami's building came to my mind. You know, the KIAT University, you know, but what is the difference between your project and his building? Of course, your building is much more impressive.
I wouldn't say that.
I can say two things that I think. First one, your project is quite small, so it's easy to see the change of the atmosphere or spaces. But Junya Ishigami's architecture is too big, so it looks like, how can I say, neutral. And so I want to hear your answer.
I think as you mentioned, it's a lot of time his project is about scale. So the scale of the projects are quite big and quite sometimes out of our perception. And I mean, I never thought about this question before, but I'm gonna try to answer it. I think, as you mentioned, our project is relatively small, and what we try to do is, in this case, not to create an environment by itself. So for me, Junya Ishigami's project is, as you know, he's about creating environments, and it's creating environments that is almost the same size or kind of replacing what we are in this world. And I think for this project, I mean, there is an aspect that we also try to do that, but I think it's kind of in this balance between the two. So it's you still kind of attach to the outside world, but also there is a chance that you kind of escape from it. And that's, I think, what we try to achieve in this project. Does that answer the question?
Of course. I thought my question is kind of rude, but I want to hear your opinion because I'm touched by your project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what Ikon said. Like I think I can find the quality of Japanese architecture as well as Swiss, and maybe all your other influences, like including all these experiences that Lydia also mentioned. I guess there's no more question. So I think that's pretty much it. Thank you for the time and effort. Thank you so much for accepting, giving us a great lecture. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hee Joon. Thank you, all the students at the university. Bye-bye.